computer. Okay, hello again to the third home office edition of ZK Ask the Expert. Can't believe we're sitting 2 months already at home. So hope it's getting better next week. Looks good right now. Yeah, today we talk about Jakarta or Jakarta EE in more specifically, just to see what this means for our applications, for ZK in particular, and just show what this also how this needs to be adjusted in our development flow, and do a few examples of deployment just to see some error messages that may happen if something went wrong, and what to watch out when it works, just to get an idea what the plans are and when this will be available. And maybe it helps to decide whether you have to upgrade right now or later. I think it's not urgent too much, but we will see. So this is the introduction of what we have planned for Jakarta EE. Just have my, as promised, I'll have beer this time. So cheers. I thought I was buying a beer from Indonesia, but I found out it's from Singapore. So sorry if this one doesn't fit the topic. It's a Tiger beer. So cheers. Yeah, first time with the beer. So what can we say about Jakarta EE? So I already showed the Wikipedia article. It mentions that this is just a continuation of the Java EE project that was formerly hosted by Sun and Oracle, and now handed over to the Eclipse Foundation. And they had to give it a new name for unfortunate licensing or legal reasons. So everything has to be renamed, including the source code. And that's why we are a bit in this kind of mess right now. It's just a release that no one needs because it adds no features. It just adds more work. But in order to get new features in the future, everyone has to upgrade sooner or later, because the container vendors already start migrating to this new version. For ZK in particular, relevant are the servlet API, which is all the top of the list. So somehow the API level changed from Jakarta 4 to Jakarta 5. I'm not really aware of any big differences in ZK between 3.1 and 4. I think it just works the same way. And the intention of version 4 and 5 of the servlet specification is also to keep everything compatible with the same features, just add a new, just change the namespace. So it's easy to test before and after an upgrade that everything still works as before. So you just change the names and don't change any functionality. A new functionality will be in future versions from there on. If someone is interested in their servers which are supported or not, they try to keep a list here of what's available. It's slightly limited. It doesn't show everything that's relevant for me, but right now I'm working or I tested already Wildfly and Glassfish, and these two seem to work. And also Tomcat and Jetty is something I use for development very regularly. So I also make sure that my development flow is not interrupted by this upgrade, and hopefully yours as well. So what did I plan to show? There is, if someone needs a bit more background behind all this this renaming release, they call it the Big Bang release here. There's a list to the mailing list. It starts like with the options, and then there's a vivid discussion between all the stakeholders that have an opinion about it. It's quite fun to read if someone is interested in the history of this. Just added this for fun. But in the end, it seems like all the packages that are in the specification are changed from Java X to Jakarta. And that's what they call the Big Bang, because there's no binary compatibility between the two versions, just needs a different dependency. And every code using these libraries doesn't have a fallback code. It just needs to change the imports, for example, in a Java class and other configuration names. So that's the history. Jakarta 8 is the previous version. Jakarta 9 will be the new version. 9.1 is important. Is there are no feature changes in 9.0. 9.1 somehow adds a bit more JDK 11 support. If someone's interested in the exact changes, they are listed in these document links. And Jakarta 10 will be the next version with new features at some point. There's already some proposed features in this DZone article, but none of them sound interesting to me right now. Maybe there will be something groundbreaking, but I didn't see anything yet for me, for my daily life or daily work. So yeah, just have a read. It's quite interesting just to get the background, but more important for us is how to what does it mean for ZK project? How do we upgrade? And our plan is, and that's what we are doing right now, we are using this the Tomcat Jakarta EE migration tool. This, oh, I'm sorry, there's some background noise. I think they're disinfecting the streets or something. I just wait until they stop announcing. Okay, they are finished. So this is the tool we are planning to use. And we use this for right now during our build process to have two parallel builds, a ZK 9.6 version, freshly version, and a ZK 9.6 Jakarta version. So we will also have this kind of parallel release for this, so you can test your application before and after the change without functional changes with the same feature, how to say, feature level of ZK. And we are not sure yet how long we have to keep the versions in parallel. If this works nicely, I think the effort is not too big on our side so far. We haven't found anything breaking yet, or that breaks this approach. So this depends on your feedback, how long we will have to keep these parallel versions. What we did is we created, for example, you see the new version suffix is Jakarta 9.6 freshly, and in our Maven repository, you will see the parallel versions of 9.6, which are currently built. This is just a daily build that from yesterday. Somehow it was built today. It failed overnight, but now it's succeeded. And here is the equivalent Jakarta version. You see, it's just built in the same. A few minutes later, 7 minutes later, the Jakarta version comes out. That's the plan. There's a short build process for the Jakarta version. And if you're planning to use this, and that's what we will do in the demo project, this is the one you need for the containers that support Jakarta 9 or the Servlet 5 specification. So what do we, yeah, okay, so this is for the ZK binaries. So all the ZK libraries will have the Jakarta build version, all the core libraries. And there are some ZK add-ons that don't depend on any of these JavaX APIs that are part of the Jakarta specification. For example, Gmaps, pivot table, they will just work as before, or they should just work. If we missed something, let us know. Yeah. There will not be a Jakarta version for everything, only for those dependencies that need one. Others, for example, CK editor needs a Jakarta edition. And for CK editor, we already have a similar pattern. It looks a bit, or you see the history, and there's already a Jakarta freshly available. And also right now, only the release for the original ZK and the Jakarta freshly will be released when ZK 9.6 comes out. Before, it's pointless to have this release version. So this is the same pattern here. So if you see problems where an add-on doesn't work anymore, watch out for a Jakarta edition and try this. And if it's missing, let us know. We intend to keep our plugins or our add-ons working. For Zats, our testing tool is currently in the progress. I'm working on this. I already upgraded Zats to use Jetty 10 internally. Jetty have also decided this kind of parallel release. They, after their Jetty 9.4 versions, they made a version Jetty 10 and Jetty 11, which also intend to have the same feature status. And Jetty 10 is for the old Jakarta or for the old servlet spec, and Jetty 11 is for the new servlet spec. With Jakarta, with Jetty, you just need to be careful. It needs JDK 11 to run. You can still compile your project with Java 8, but as a runtime, Jetty needs JDK 11. And for the version 3.0 of Jetty, of Zets, I already built it freshly. As said, for the Jetty 11, and we need to see if we can migrate it, but I don't think we can easily migrate it using the tool. So there will likely be a version 4.0 that contains the Jakarta edition or dependencies for the embedded Jetty, because it's not just a jar file migration, it's also migration for dependencies, because you include this as Maven dependencies. So it's, in this case, maybe better to have 4.0, but not yet decided, but needs to be done before we release. So I'm on it, and I'll show you the error messages, what happens with these when the build fails. So don't be surprised. For Spring Boot, it's a bit unfortunate, or Spring and Spring Boot in particular, it's not available yet. I found the how to say, a feature request in the whole Spring project, or Spring project, Spring framework, and the intention is to support Jakarta 9. And this guy, the Jürgen Höller, I think this is one of the persons that is a core developer of Spring. I often see them in, this is his name in the source code in many of the Spring classes. And he just said it's likely not going to happen very soon. At first, maybe with Spring 6, so the next major version, and Spring Boot 3. And right now they are at Spring 5 and Spring Boot 2.4 or 2.5. So the next major versions will have this. But he said next year, this was on April. So in about a year, we maybe have a Spring version that we can test. Maybe you can express your your opinion about it, to give them a push or not. But right now, there's nothing we can do with our Spring and Spring Boot add-ons to migrate. So the recommendation here is also from Spring. We have to stick with the current Java servlet spec 4 or Jakarta 8, and keep using Tomcat 9 or Jetty 10 or the equivalent containers. So you can't upgrade with Spring yet. But I assume you already know this if you have a Spring heavy project and we're planning to upgrade. But if not, that's a good excuse to do this later, because there's nothing available yet on the Spring side that I have found. If you find something, let me know. Maybe there's an alpha build somewhere that I missed. I would try this out so we can migrate as early as possible. Yeah, so let's go into some code. This is the history and everything. What is available. I think there are a few other add-ons of ZK. ZK, what is it? Or KK, our spreadsheet component is not yet migrated, if I'm right. So this is also ongoing, but it's a bigger project that needs to be tested in more detail. But it's planned. And is there another add-on I missed? Something important for you, for any one of you? Basically anything that uses the servlet spec directly, like the HTTP servlet request, needs to be migrated somehow. If not, all right, we just continue. So let's look at the project. What I did is I used my default project that I use for the efficient development talks. And whenever I or to have a consistent or like a continuous project that I know that worked before and we can do now, it demonstrates that the local development work still works without restarting, even with the new APIs, and that we can also build WAR files to deploy in different servers. So what I prepared is a Tomcat 9, a Tomcat 10, a Wildfly 24 preview version. That's a preview version, which has Jakarta 9.1 standard, I think, and a Glassfish 6.2, which we can use for deployment testing later. But first, what needs to be done to upgrade? So what I found most helpful is to first upgrade to the latest versions before switching over to Jakarta EE. So if you are planning to switch to ZK9 9.6, first switch to the non-Jakarta version, make sure everything still works on your old container, and then switch to the Jakarta version. Don't do it in one go, otherwise you don't know what's broken. Or you don't know exactly why it's breaking, because of 9.6 changes, features, or bug fixes, or because of the Jakarta migration. And since also 9.6 is our first try, I'm quite sure we don't cover everything correctly yet. So see this as a test version for now. I would say if it works, cool. I could imagine we maybe need a 9.61 or 9.62 to get all the bumps out of the road. Yeah. So what is relevant in my? Let's see the project structure. Which branch did I check out? Jakarta 8. So what I did is a small Git project that has 3 stages. I'll provide the whole repository this time, so you can switch between versions to see the changes. So I have a tag initial before, which uses still Jetty-9, then a Jakarta 8 version, I call it Jakarta 8 version, which uses a Jetty-10, and then one that uses Jetty-11 for local development to quickly see what is breaking and what needs to be changed. Now, initially, I just imported my project, all the files we have here, and for the Jakarta 8, I just did the upgrade without any code changes. I just needed to migrate or change dependencies. For example, we can see I removed some non-use dependencies. I just found I didn't need it anymore. I needed to change, or this is for Tomcat, local Tomcat development. I'll get to this in a minute. The dependency changes are I changed from Jetty 9.4 to 10.0, and also for local Tomcat development to 9.05, just the latest. This one was the previous Tomcat runner, which doesn't exist anymore for Tomcat 10. So I chose a different local development approach for Tomcat. Still works all with Maven dependencies. No need to install Tomcat directly. Then we see I used the latest Freshly version of ZK as of yesterday. I didn't change the Freshly anymore today, just to make sure everything works. So I switched from 9.5 to 9.6. I used the Freshly because it's not yet released. I changed Zs to use Jetty-10 for building. And here we also see I removed the dependency I don't need for this application, and added a new Zs dependency for 9.6 because we had to change a little bit on the protocol side of our Ajax that needs to be considered by the testing tool. It's not the protocol, it's just a few parameters that need to be represented differently, like date objects needed to be represented in a safer way while transporting in our JSON-like data structures. And just this is logging configuration. And what else did I do? This is just some comments I changed. Build. Okay, this is also just again Zs changes, logging, and just commenting. Code comment somehow IntelliJ changed the way it does the XML commenting. Okay, so not many changes, and we just check how it runs. If we go to IntelliJ again, I have let's look into this again. So we have this project from our efficient development, which consists of 2 modules: a war module, an application module, which represents all your application logic that is not necessarily needed by the war file, or that could be used somewhere else, Spring services or whatever. A war file with the Zool files and the resources to package everything together, and the development config for additional configuration during development. in order to run with Jetty 10, it's almost the same as before. Just check our application config. Oh, I need to switch my Maven profile. Switch to Jetty. This is not one trick, but this is one of the features I use from Maven to switch between different local profiles. I have a Jetty profile and a Tomcat profile that will load different dependencies. And there's one of the differences is that Jetty now has changed the dependency of their WebSocket. They renamed the WebSocket dependency. Now there is a WebSocket JAVAX server instead of JAVAX WebSocket server impl. And for Tomcat, I needed something different. I use Tomcat core now. And we have the Jetty version, which is Jetty 10 right now. So if we now check the run configuration, it should be now no longer red. It should be no longer red. It still decides to be red. Somehow it says it doesn't find the dependency. Warning, class not found. Maybe update the project. Okay, now it's green. So what we can see here is I use the same configuration as before. I use my the module devconfig for the development. I use the hot swap agent, which also continues to work luckily. So no changes there yet from what I've seen. I have my web app root, which points into the WAR file source main web app here in this folder. And yeah, it's running the runner class, and otherwise no configuration, just default Java class. And I need Java 11 to run this. With Java 8, it just won't start anymore. Now, if you pick Java 8 accidentally and say run it, I think it will just complain. Okay, it doesn't know the Java option. This always happens, so just make it a custom property. Okay, and run again. Yeah, here it just complains about the Java runtime, and it says I'm running with 52, which is Java 8, and it needs 55, which is Java 11. They just have weird version numbers internally. So we just run this with Java 11, and I use the DC EVM just for the hot code replacement and see if that everything is running again. So this is most likely something you have to figure out when upgrading your development project, that the Jetty is starting up again, and then it looks as usual. I'm quite happy that the Jetty 10 is no longer, or they still say deprecated, but I'm happy they continue to maintain it, so I can use the same feature as before, the jetty-runner, to test Java, to test the Jakarta 8 and 9 with the same configuration. Well, so it starts up, everything is nice. You see, I'm using an evaluation version here, so nothing unexpected. And if we go into the browser, we should see our main.reload. And if I click something, it updates. And we see in the network that it's using our Ajax servlet to just send data back and forth. So nothing has changed here. It should be all the same as before. As mentioned, for WebSockets, it's slightly different because they changed their dependencies. Need to add it like this. And in our ZK XML, we just enable WebSockets. Web-inf ZK XML. Here we just enable WebSockets. And this should also work. Oh, import it. Should also work as before. Stop the previous process. No, it will fail, and that's good that it fails, because I can show you the error message. And then another thing I had to add to get it to run. So right now it will just complain that some of container lifecycle null pointer exception in WebSocket init, and somehow it doesn't find a WebSocket server container or whatever it's called by Jetty at the current time when it's configuring it. And that's why I had to also, instead of, or in addition to adding the dependency, we also need to configure this in Jetty. I've never been a friend with the Jetty configuration files, but this time I had to use it. And that's why I added the Jetty dev context file, which will enable the JAVAX WebSocket configuration. So this is something that we have to add to the configuration. If you know a better way of enabling the WebSockets for the jetty-runner or for the Jetty configuration, let me know. It's just this config file that I've read the documentation a few times and I didn't find a better way. So I somehow get configuration classes of the application web app context, and then I set the classes, use an array util to just append one more class to an array of configuration strings. So this is very specific, but it will do the job. So if we switch to the Jetty context, which instead of using the path, and here we see it's directly using the path, it will use the config file to start up, and the config file then will link to the path of the folder. So it's very similar, just an extra file that does something. The part commented out is something I did in the past, or found in the past for Windows. If you have problem with resource files not updating because of file buffer settings, this is something I haven't encountered anymore since I use Linux, of course. So now we should be running on WebSockets instead of all as a XHR doc and WebSockets, and reload and show me the WebSocket. No, I haven't. I forgot something. I think I had to restart. Yeah, we still have the error message, so now the error message should go away. And we see something else instead. Failed to connect. So something is still running. Let's see, did I not shut down properly? Okay, so now it's starting again and started without any error messages. And we have the WebSocket channel is open and we don't get any new requests. Everything is using messages inside the WebSocket, the open WebSocket connection. Okay, that's about WebSockets. Very similar. This the same thing is with Tomcat. So if you use local Tomcat, in the past I was using the web app runner. I think I have a link somewhere to it. Where are my training notes here? The tool I used in the past was, somehow it fails to display the preview. Okay, here. I was using this one. Yeah, I used the web app runner available from this GitHub repository as a Maven dependency. Somehow they haven't updated it yet to Tomcat 10, or I haven't found the branch yet. I'm sure they will do this because it's very useful. And then I will update, maybe make another efficient development talk to update this process again. So for now, when you want to use Tomcat locally and you don't want to use, like me, you don't want to use the local Tomcat plugin of your IDE, somehow I never like it, I never understand it. I use the local, how to say, the embedded Tomcat to run this locally. And the embedded Tomcat configuration looks very similar to the Jetty. It's just a Java class we run, but instead we start the startup Tomcat class now. Previously it was some kind of Tomcat runner main or something. Now it's startup Tomcat. We pass in no properties because it's assuming a config file in a specific folder. And we just say where's the working directory, and based on the working directory, we have to provide the configuration folder for Tomcat. So we switch the profiles to Tomcat. And in the same way in the Maven POM, we switch to And we, where is the POM for the development config? I hope this gets quick now. Yeah. This is not the here dev config. Sorry. So here, just also enable the WebSockets directly. What we do is we just load tomcat-embedded and the tomcat-embed WebSocket. Control-Shift-O, import all the Maven stuff. And what I said is we need a special config folder. So inside the dev config project, I have this new project folder, or this folder conf. It contains some, like a partial Tomcat folder. I have a Catalina folder that contains nothing. I have a dummy folder that contains nothing. Just needs a folder for whatever reasons. I need a server XML, which somehow points to the web app that needs to run. And the app base is dummy, which contains nothing. Somehow this works. Don't ask me. I just tried around a bit until I got it to run. And this was good enough for me now. If there's problems, I need to improve this, but right now this works for my local tests. Just set everything to false, use the default port. And in the web XML, I had to enable the default servlet for the default URL just to get the WebSockets run. I assume the default servlet in Tomcat is somehow dealing with the handshake requests and the upgrading of the requests for WebSockets. If you don't enable this, you will have no WebSockets for Tomcat. Or you use the Tomcat you like. You can use any plugin that works for you, but this one is the one I like to use locally because it starts so quickly. I don't have to install it, and I can change the Tomcat version with the Maven dependency. Yeah, it's already started. We see it's running Tomcat. Where does it say Tomcat 9.05? We will see this change in a second. And just to verify that the application is running, just go to the same page. And yeah, it's using the WebSocket channel as before. So no difference, just a different server. And this clearing map, this is just my clear config. This is the cache clearing for the hotcode replacement. So that I mentioned this earlier in a previous talk. So this can be easily disabled in our dev config Java class source main Java. Here you can disable the logging for this. It's just to see that hotcode replacement still works as before. And if we, for example, change some code, now the application server is running in debug mode. We go to some module source main Java, just change something, the main VM, and we just say updated time. Yeah, add some code. Control-Shift F9, recompile. It compiles one file. Takes a bit longer because of screen sharing. And then if we update the time, we see the updated code here directly. So that's what the hotcode replacement in the JVM does by default, and is a bit enhanced by the DC EVM, the additional hotcode replacement feature. And you can add new methods, remove methods, but not the topic today. Features still work. So we have upgraded to Tomcat 9, the latest version, and also Jetty 10. So this will work. And at the same time, at command line, we can check that our test cases still work. So we say Maven clean test. I like the command line because it gives me more details. And then we see that it's working independent of the IntelliJ, of the development environment. Here we see it's starting my test class. It's starting our internal Jetty. The Jetty version is here, 10.05, and my test case succeeded. And we will see it fail in a second. So we just revert our changes because I want to switch the branches. Now we switch from Jakarta 8 to Jakarta 9. Git checkout dot. So we have no more changes here. Git checkout Jakarta 9. Oh, maybe we do a diff first. Yeah, just to see what is required now to upgrade to Jakarta 9. That's what we all been waiting for. Git diff tool Jakarta 9. I just compare with the current branch. What we see is the dev config. The development config has changed. And all I did is I upgraded from Jetty 11 or from Jetty 10 to 11 and from Tomcat 9 to Tomcat 10 latest versions. And the dependency for the WebSocket server changed from Javax server to Jakarta server. So it's all reasonable changes that are easy to follow but this is only for the development config. For the general configuration of the whole application, I changed the ZK version. I switched from ZK 9.6 freshly to 9.6 Jakarta freshly. And this is the plan, that this is the only thing you need to do for the core ZK. There will be other things that you have to migrate, but this should be the ZK upgrade. And that's it. That's all the changes I do. I just check out this branch now. Now, come on, check out Jakarta 9. And just verify we are on the right branch. So now we are one step ahead. 2 files are changed in between. Can't I close this one? Okay. And IntelliJ should pick up the changes in a second, and we should see that the dependencies are updating to Jakarta. And also for the development, this is development already. We should see the Tomcat embedded right now is used in the version Tomcat 10. I just switched to Jetty for a second because I always start with Jetty. And update again. So it switches to jetty-runner 11. Now we do the same exercise again. We stop everything and run the run context. I think I haven't enabled WebSockets yet, but it should run even without WebSockets. So the plan is now that we run with Jetty 11. And here we see something breaks because what am I missing? Configure the ARC method, the WebSocket server's configuration. Yes, of course. Yeah, I'm running the context file and I didn't add the dependencies. I will just do the full configuration. Development config, just comment in everything again. Just revert it because I don't want conflicts when changing branches. So now we add the Jakarta server. Control-Shift-O and restart. Oh, this beer is better than I remembered. So can drink it. Just see it's still. Oh, it didn't start, right? Yes, not started yet. Add to array. But this should now be. No, it hasn't picked up the dependency. The Jakarta web. It has. Okay, let's start without the context. Maybe I need to rebuild something in the project. Okay. It starts already without with Jetty. Where do we see Jetty now version? Here, Jetty 11.05. So it starts with a new version. And now okay, so we get the Ajax version running. So that's after upgrading. And in the same way, I hope we get the WebSockets to run. Just need the ZK XML enable WebSockets again. And then use the context file and the context config. Maybe I forgot something in there. Let's see. That's interesting. Good to see an error message if I forgot something. Yes, okay, it's complaining that it can't find the Java X, of course. Now this has changed the name, so our config file needs to be, maybe I put this Easter egg here for on purpose. So this one should be Jakarta. I wonder how I tested this before. Must have been something I rebased and missed to merge. Okay, and now it should start. So that's the trouble you will have in many places, that it will try to load the wrong class name, package name somewhere, and then not find it, and then have some other problem. WebSocket configuration. Config classes and lines caused by class not found, Eclipse, Jetty, WebSocket, Jakarta, so Java X. And they also added it to the class name, of course, not just the package here, also the class name. So they're very specific that you don't accidentally get the wrong version running. Jakarta WebSocket configuration. And this, I haven't found it documented anyway. I think I had to go into the source code to figure out what I need to add. I'm sure I looked in the wrong place. It's just the Jetty configuration is sometimes complicated. But when it works, I really like it because it starts up so quickly and this is easy to change. Yes, and now things are working as before on Jakarta. So that's the local development. The same will also work for, I just say, for Tomcat 10, and then we do some real deployments into our real servers. We just stop again and run again. I wonder if there are any questions or something I missed on the way, because it's quite quiet in the chat. I know this is not the favorite topic of everyone, not even me. It's just more work without extra features. So this is the Tomcat now doing its thing. Tomcat, no, it's still Jetty. I forgot to restart. Tomcat. It still has Jetty dependencies here. So why? Sometimes it doesn't update. Don't know. I thought I clicked the checkbox to update this directly. Oh, okay. Did I not restart? Come on, build. Okay, and now TCEVM Tomcat 10.8 is starting. Everything is loading. All right, so now we have the result again. Yes, okay, so our communication works. Also, the other pages I have mvc.zul is just another example with MVC instead of MVVM, just to show that client-server communication works. And there is a resources example that I used to demonstrate that the changes also work, the live changes work for JavaScript and CSS files, but no need to demonstrate right now. Just works as before. Okay, so we stop this here, and instead we go to our friend, the command line. I put all the commands I need already. So now what we see, if we say Maven clean test, we see that Zs will still fail. So that's what I mentioned before. Our Zs test cases will not compile because there is no, it's trying to run them with Jetty 10, and there's no Jetty 11 version yet that supports Jakarta. So you get the typical error message saying no class def found error, Jakarta servlet request attributes. Any kind of Jakarta servlet thing will not be found because it's using Jetty 10, and Jetty 10 doesn't have this namespace yet. So these kind of error messages are the ones to expect when upgrading went wrong or you mixing the wrong versions of containers. And we just see different things or similar things in the live deployment. So for example, we can still build this and we just exclude the tests. Maven clean package here. Just copy. Too lazy to type. So I just built my WAR file without the test cases. It still compiles. By the way, I use a Maven -- version. I use Maven 3.6.3, no 3.6.3. I should use the, no, I don't change it now. I think I also tested with the latest Maven 3.8 version because it has some breaking changes with the some backwards breaking changes in itself. So when upgrading to Maven 3.8, you need to be sure, or you might need to change some POM files unless you go to version 9.6, where we have addressed these Maven incompatibilities. It has to do with secure servers and repositories. Mostly HTTPS URLs are now the only choice, and HTTP is blocked. Yeah, so we build our WAR file and we just move it to a Tomcat. So, for example, if we move our Tomcat to the wrong Tomcat 9, now we built for Tomcat 10 for Jakarta 9, and we move it, or we copy it into our Tomcat 9 version. Now we should see a similar error message. Just start it up. Like, what is my startup command? I want to see all the logs. Okay, so I start my Tomcat, and then I copy my WAR file into the wrong Tomcat. I think I have this here. Yes, so it should already find it. Okay, I missed something. Address already in use. Oops. I wanted to see the deployment errors. Okay. What do I do? R-RF. Or maybe I start it up again and then I copy it again. Okay, just make some white space here. Now it's trying to deploy, and it's instantly failing and says here can't find the same error message like in Jetty. Jakarta servlet request attribute listener not found. So because it's Tomcat 9, it doesn't know about the Jakarta namespace, the Jakarta packages. So instead we shut it down again and go to Tomcat 10, and this one should just work. So we do the same thing. We start up, and then we copy this instead to our Tomcat 10 instance. Tomcat 10.8 root war, and we should see that this one is now picking it up for deployment in a few seconds. 1, 2, 3. Come on. Now we see it. Address. I always do the same mistake again. I need to stop first before restarting. Shut down. Okay, and then we start again. And now it should try to deploy the WAR file. And this time it succeeds. And we can just go there as before. And just go back a few times and test our buttons, and the page updates again. WebSockets work as before. So this is for Tomcat. And we see nothing special here. And at the same time, maybe this is a good point to take a short recess to the training notes, because I also tried this for, or if you want to test this for for another server, for example, the Wildfly had a good document, or somehow I was blind. I didn't find it at first. So for Wildfly, if you want to download the Jakarta edition, you have to use the Wildfly preview. Somehow I was looking only at the other ones, and I didn't think that, I thought they were migrating already, but they only have a preview version right now. So there's a preview EE 9.1, or here's a preview 9.0. So I just use the latest version to see that it starts and runs. So I can't use the servlet only distribution. I have to use the full EE9 distribution here. And that's what I downloaded and unzipped into this folder. So we have just unzipped the binaries. We What is the startup command here? Stand alone. It's starting the Wildfly. Doesn't take a lot longer. They have improved a lot over the JBoss they had a few years ago or several years ago. You still see some JBoss references here, but it's really starting up a lot faster than I remember from the past. Yeah, no, sorry, we just copy the file into Wildfly now. Where's my cheating copy command here? Come on, copy. Yeah, just for deployment, I just copy it there, and we check that it's finding the jar file. Takes always a few seconds. Yeah, there it found something, the root var, and it's giving the ZK license warning because of evaluation version. It says Jasper report ignored because I didn't add the dependencies for Jasper reports. Most cases I don't need, we don't need them. And it said the WebSockets are enabled. So should just have some WebSockets now. If I go back to localhost 80,000, just to verify we are really running on Wildfly now, we see, we don't see anything here. How can we force an error message? No, just not found. Okay. But what we see in the logs is that it's accessing our labels properties. So it's loading the labels. So we see it's going into the right server. And then things luckily just work as before. So good to know a different servlet engine works in the same way, and also a larger container. And in a similar way, I also used the Glassfish, also downloaded the dependency, unzipped it for Glassfish. I think it was easier to find for me. They just had it in their latest downloads, and the full profile. And they also are very clear about which versions contain which compatibility. So Java EE9, I think this is the one that requires Java 11, and this is for Java 8 with the same features. I used the latest 6.2 just to get the latest test. I think this one was start server. Then we have the same thing again. It's starting the server. Also not too slow anymore in the startup sequence. Of course, if the server is empty, there's nothing to do. And we just copy to, oh wait, what is the copy command? This one. And we check that it's picking up the file. Did I do something wrong? Root var nach Glassfish to Glassfish. Yeah, that's stupid. That doesn't make sense. Glassfish, domains, domain 1, auto deploy. I don't know why I had the wrong name here. So it's good that it didn't do anything, because it shouldn't. And now it's picking up something. It has a slightly different logging format, but it deployed the context root. It is somewhere it's complaining about ZK. Here the source license. And let's see if we get the same effect on the page. So we go to our local. This time it's a local host, because somehow it doesn't do the same thing as others. The root var is not deployed as the root context. It puts it into a context called root. But okay, we can work with this. WebSockets still do what they do. So it just really rounds up the thing quite nicely. Yeah, so you see we're testing. We are trying to make this simple. The main takeaway is once you have upgraded to your build system, and important the local development, that you can also verify this more live, because it's quite annoying if you can't work in the same way as before. Everything slows down just because of an upgrade. Shouldn't be the fact. So for me, the major task was upgrading the local development to Jetty 10, or to upgrade to the latest version before the Big Bang change. And the Big Bang change is really just almost just a search replace of the package names Java X to Jakarta, thanks to Oracle. Yeah, and then the upgrade is simple when the preparations are done. And the good thing is you can do the upgrading to the ZK without Jakarta, independent of the final switch to the container. Did I miss something? Are there questions? Is there something unclear? I think we will have a few changes. We will see. Oh, there's already a question. Cool. There are benefits switching between normal and Jakarta version. There are no visible improvements. Exactly. There's really no benefit. It's just a legal thing that the names have to change. Oracle would not allow the Eclipse Foundation to use the same package names anymore. And that's why they decided for this Big Bang solution, or they call it the Big Bang solution. It's really what they call it in their mailing list. Oh, I got the wrong one. In the mailing list, they called it the proposal one, the Big Bang. They say Jakarta 9 is for migration purposes only, no feature changes, and Jakarta 10 will have the new features. But if you want to switch to Jakarta 10 one day, or if you have to switch, you need to migrate first into the Jakarta namespace. And yeah, they discussed all the pros and cons. And it's really just annoying. It's no one asked for this except for Oracle. They wanted to make sure that the Eclipse Foundation is not using the Java X name anymore. I think they mentioned this somewhere. As announced to the update, blah, blah, the trademarks will not be allowed. So there is maybe there's a link somewhere below this here, foundation block, blah, blah, blah. Just read about it. It's a bit of history in the API. It's slightly interesting. Yeah. So the intention really is to have the version ZK 9.6 and 9.6 Jakarta to have exactly the same feature, work in the same way across Java X and Jakarta namespace. And if you test it earlier and find a difference or a problem, we will be happy to know, because we need to make sure it has exactly this. Our plan is to have the same features and the same features and flaws and problems in the same version, so we can, because we both are built from the same code base and they shouldn't behave differently. So whenever you have a chance or the need to upgrade, this is a chance to do this early before you have to. Maybe one day they find a very critical security vulnerability in Tomcat 9 that can't be fixed anymore and needs to be migrated to Tomcat 10, or someone stops maintaining JBoss 22, whatever. Then we have both JXP and Jakarta dependencies if we upgrade JXP and Jakarta dependencies. I think they mentioned something about JXP in their main article about Jakarta. Where was this? Let me check. They have a website, Jakarta EE. Where's their main website? Jakarta EE developers, Eclipse Founder. I need to search for it. I think you can't, or I think you can use this in parallel, because there's no collision between the namespaces. If one is prefixed with Java X and the other one with Jakarta, you could load both classes, but if a container is only listening to Jakarta or working with the Jakarta prefix classes, it won't work. Jakarta, what is it? EE. JXP is the XML bindings, right? So here they have the specification. So everything that belongs to this will be here. So there is the Jakarta. Does anyone see the JXP stuff? Oh, there's too many. JSON binding, managed beans, Jakarta mail. They have so many APIs that they changed. Here, Jakarta X. Is it this one? Because they have the release 3.0 and the binding is they have a nice document that displays all the changes here. So maybe that's the right one, not sure. Somewhere they have the changes mentioned everywhere. Jakarta default bindings, overriding default behavior, schema, binding framework. I really don't know. I didn't use this framework, schema to Java. Is this the right one? I think they have a Java doc link. Maybe that's easier to look if this is really JXB related. Doesn't look like JXB. Oh yeah, JXB. Okay. So this is the refer to the external binding. This okay. So it changes. I think you can use the APIs in parallel, but if the implementation is using the new prefixes, then your code will be incompatible. So might be you have to update. And also if you use an application server that provides the implementation for these APIs, they will use either one or the other. I'm not sure if they use both at the same time, but they changed these. And since this talk is about ZK upgrading, and ZK doesn't use JXP, or do we? If we do, let us know. Maybe I'm not sure. But you said, can we use both JXP and Jakarta? You have to say if you want to use Java X, JXP, and Jakarta JXP at the same time. I think technically they don't collide, but I'm not sure they are recognized by the implementation if they're provided by your container. If this somewhat helps. Okay, sorry, we have to leave. Our stuff is based on Spring, so we have to wait. Yes, sorry, yeah, sorry. Spring needs to wait. And no benefits, we have to wait, and Jakarta. Okay, then I would say I will stop, or I'll conclude the meeting today. Yeah, it's a nice feature that no one really needs, but everyone has to work with it at some point. So I'll stay online for a while, so stop the recording now.